Hello everyone, my name's John Pearson, and today we're going to be talking about Pi-hole. Now, I'm sure we've all had it happen. You hop on your computer, open your internet browser, go onto your favorite website, and get berated with ads. Even if ads were just annoying and able to be dealt with, they can still lead to security and, well, performance issues. With that said, I want to ask everyone listening a very important question. Should you have the ability to be online without being subjugated to advertisements and tracking? I think so. With the digital age that we all live in, advertisements have invaded nearly every facet of our day-to-day life. Thankfully, there are steps we can take to fight back. But why are advertisements such a threat to our online browsing experience and overall computer security? Well, ads are no longer just advertisements, but rather an assortment of unwanted and unrequested content being thrust upon us, such as malvertising. Malvertising is when an ad being loaded on a browser contains malicious code that can install malware or aid in online attacks such as session hijacking. In 2017 alone, Zirconium purchased an estimated 1 billion ads, which are theorized to have run on 62% of ad monetized websites each week during that year. All of these ads had either malicious code or redirects to malicious websites. Also, the vast majority of the web has become a vector for guerrilla marketing campaigns to try and fight for your attention. Google alone has tracking and analytic tools for targeted ads on 86% of all websites hosted in the US, according to a study done by Ghostery. If all of this wasn't enough, ads also inherently slow down internet connections as more data than what is necessary is being sent across your network. So, what exactly is Pi-hole? Pi-hole is a Linux-based DNS sinkhole that protects your entire network from ads and tracking by filtering out malicious or advertisement URLs. By DNS sinkhole, I mean that you would point your router away from your ISP's DNS and instead point it to the Pi-hole, so that any URL that needs to be resolved goes through the Pi-hole first for validation, and once it's cleared, it gets sent to an upstream DNS, such as Google or Cloudflare. Any URL that fails to pass through Pi-hole, instead of resolving to a valid IP and loading the content into your device, Pi-hole instead returns an IP address of 0.0.0.0. It is important to note that unlike most well-known ad blockers, Pi-hole spans across an entire network, blocking all ads on laptops, desktops, phones, and smart TVs, and can even stop automated telemetry data being sent back to manufacturers of smart devices. Along with all of this utility, Pi-hole has an admin portal that offers analytics and monitoring to allow users to have a granular look at what data is being resolved across the entire network. The best thing about Pi-hole is that it's free to download, with the only requirement being the user's ability to configure the software and have access to DNS settings on your home router. Pi-hole has an incredibly low power consumption and processing needs so that it can be run on a wide variety of Linux devices, including a Raspberry Pi. Before we continue, I feel that it's important to discuss how exactly ads are typically served to a user's smart device or browser. Typically, a user will enter a URL into their browser or click on a link provided by a search engine. Your computer then sends that request to a preset DNS or domain name system. The DNS then takes the URL and directs the requested IP address and website to be loaded into the user's browser. Now, when the browser begins loading the HTML code that makes the content viewable, there are usually segments of code that then send additional DNS requests to load extra content, or in this case, ads. The DNS again resolves the requested URL that the web page asked for, and the response is then loaded into your browser as if it was part of the website the entire time. This is a very rough explanation of how targeted ads are served. Pi-hole, when it's running on a network, filters those DNS requests against block lists set by the user, and if a URL appears on the block list, instead of the IP address associated with the web page or ad being resolved and displayed in your browser, as mentioned previously, your browser instead is given an address of 0.0.0.0, which typically will result in either no ad showing at all or a broken link icon being displayed. So, what do we need to run Pi-hole on a home network? Well, as stated before, the requirements are not too demanding. We first need a device on which to install Pi-hole, either a desktop or a laptop running Linux, or even a Raspberry Pi running Raspberry Pi OS. The officially supported operating systems are Raspberry Pi OS, formerly known as Raspbian, Ubuntu, Debian, Fedora, and CentOS. And though that is the list of officially supported operating systems, many other Linux distributions can run Pi-hole, such as Linux Mint, Manjaro, or Pop! OS, though your mileage may vary. Next, we need an Ethernet jack or a Wi-Fi adapter, and then finally, we just need the time and motivation to see this project through to completion. The configuration of Pi-hole is actually very simple. With one command, you can initiate the download and installation of the Pi-hole software, and from there, in most instances, the default settings presented in the configuration wizard will be enough to get users up and running. Now, it is important to have your device set to a static IP before this process begins, and to have all your updates done beforehand. But overall, the installation and initialization should take just a few minutes. Within this configuration process, you'll be asked to verify if you already have your device set to a static IP, which upstream DNS you would like to use, if you would like to use the default block list, whether Pi-hole should install web services or not, and the level of logging to be set upon default. Be sure to take note of the admin password displayed at the end of the installer, or else you may have to crawl through configuration files to find it again. And if at any point you were to get stuck in this initial configuration, just know that there are huge communities of dedicated users across numerous forums and subreddits that are more than willing to get new users the help they need to have their Pi-holes up and running. Pi-hole gives you a great admin portal that can be reached by putting the IP address of your Pi-hole on any browser connected to your LAN. This portal can be extremely helpful for both quick snapshots of how your Pi-hole is handling network traffic at any given point, or you can get really granular about the domains being resolved and blocked on your network. Pi-hole can be managed exclusively from the command line, but the admin portal is much more intuitive for the average user. The way that Pi-hole can block domains is through a feature called blocklist. Unlike normal ad blockers, Pi-hole is not routinely updated by another company, and it does not look for common program traits of ads, but rather it works from blocking domains that are known to be bad that you have taught your Pi-hole by the blocklist feature. There are a few sites that will host and routinely update blocklist that you can add to your Pi-hole, or you can block individual domains that you see get through your Pi-hole via various logs Pi-hole provides. Therefore, Pi-hole is not only effective at stopping most ads, but various forms of telemetry as well, since you can do things like block domains for telemetry services for sites like Facebook, Pinterest, or even smart devices that send usage analytics back to the parent company on regular intervals. There are even block lists that are curated for malicious domains as well, making the block list an incredibly robust feature, albeit one that requires a lot of investment initially to truly act as a safeguard for your network. Pi-hole offers another feature known as tail logs, which can be shown in real time what domains are being resolved on your network and what domains are being blocked. This feature can be a great tool for filtering ads that are not picked up by your block list. And finally, the Pi-hole keeps extensive logs from every IP on your network so that you can go back and review what requests are being blocked, what's being allowed, and when these queries are happening. You can even sort by the source IP address, assuming you know the IP devices that are on your network. This can be a great tool for isolating the ongoings of a network as well. While Pi-hole is a robust tool that offers a lot of power and performance, it's not without fault, and thus it's not a replacement for ad blockers and antivirus, but more of an addition to a home network security package. Due to the nature of how some ads are served, Pi-hole cannot block everything, with a perfect example being YouTube. YouTube is smart about how their ads are served, in the sense that all ads that come from the YouTube domain use the same domain that the videos themselves are served from, essentially making it impossible for all but the most advanced users to block them from the network, while other streaming services such as Crunchyroll or Crackle use ad companies to serve ads, which can be easily blocked. Pi-hole can complement some ad blockers out there as well, such as AdBlock Plus, considering AdBlock Plus lets through a surprising amount of Google tracking and telemetry. In fact, most ad blockers will allow telemetry requests to be sent through from your device, as it does not typically flag the tags within the code that ad blockers look for. Ad blockers also will not give you the network-wide protection that Pi-hole is able to provide, and only works on the devices that they're installed on. Pi-hole also works great for filtering ads on mobile devices. Whether it's browsing or in mobile games themselves, Pi-hole is able to eliminate nearly all the ads that appear between levels on your favorite mobile games or between different web pages you may load. Pi-hole also pairs nicely with other services such as private VPNs or my personal favorite, Unbound, which is a private upstream DNS that you can host locally on your network opposed to using Google or Cloudflare DNS. In closing, Pi-hole can be a great asset to anyone managing or using a home network, both in terms of security and functionality. It's rare to find software that is as stable, functional, and supported as Pi-hole, while remaining completely free, making it truly a standout amongst other services which offer similar functions. Be it through the ability to manage telemetry and tracking, or just knowing that malicious ads are being blocked, Pi-hole helps make your online life safer and more enjoyable.